Why are so many people overwhelmed with clutter? Disorganization is causing shame, suffering, friendships, time, money. People just like you wondering where and how to create an organized lifestyle. This podcast offers expert tips and solutions for your clutter obstacles. My name is Rachel Seavey, and this is the Hoardganize podcast.
Hey, collectors, welcome to the Hoardganize podcast. I am here with Varian Pierce, and he is super excited to talk about forgiveness. I'll let you take the stage, Varian.
Well, hi everyone. Um, I'm Varian Pierce. I am a peer counselor for hoarding disorder at the Mental Health Association of San Francisco, MHASF. And I'm excited to be doing this podcast with Rachel, who is also my personal professional organizer. Uh, so it's great. We're getting to know each other. And I'm loving doing this. So yeah, I thought of a great topic for this session would be forgiveness, because it's something a lot of us have real problems with. Not just people with hoarding disorder, but humanity in general. Lots of people have trouble, finding self-compassion and, reframing the negative self-talk to let themselves off the hook.
So,
So go ahead.
self-forgiveness. Self-forgiveness is specifically what you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, self-forgiveness primarily, but I think we can also, as far as what we hold on to, there might be other things. Like a lot of people in my experience, I facilitate support groups, and people sometimes hold on to things that make them feel bad. We like to, have memories in our clutter, but not all those memories are positive memories. Some are memories that make us feel bad, and maybe that could be resentment toward another person, or it could be, beating ourselves up about some mistake we made, uh, or some, but I think I'm here to say that making mistakes is okay. It's part of being human. That when we were learning to walk, we fell down a lot, but hopefully our parents didn't yell at us and shame us for not being able to walk the first time. So we have to be, this is like we're learning to walk. We're learning new skills. We're learning to kind of work with our brains the way they actually work, not the way we were told they should work. So really, it's we're learning we're learning new skills. So we are like babies learning to walk in a lot of ways. So and learning self-compassion is another way. I had to learn that. I've done a lot of work on that over the years, and I still fall into that, stupid idiot, self-blaming place, but I get out of it really quickly. I used to live there. I don't live there anymore. I visit it, but I don't live it there anymore. So
Yeah, it's really easy to feel bad, guilty, have regrets, and just kind of hang on to them. I don't really have clutter regrets, but I've got lots of other regrets that I could beat myself up about until I'm black and blue. I didn't want to be a single parent ever. That, and you hear that and you just kind of ping pong it out of there like, no, but I'm doing it, and so learning how to forgive yourself is, I think, something everybody should learn, and it's hard to do, especially when you're told, like, well, you should be this way, or most people are that way, and then you're not, and you're like, well, what's wrong with me?
yeah. Well, I think, being a gay man or a gay boy when I came out, I it's not what my parents imagined for me. Definitely not. So I had to accept myself uh the way I was, and but still I had a lot of, I had learned a lot of self-hatred for that, and for having mental health issues as well. Because my first memory of that something wasn't right was in kindergarten when I was 5, and I felt dissociated, like I was kind of watching a movie of my life. My body was just going through the motions. And so I felt very disconnected from reality for many, many years. So that just affected everything since. But then my recovery process, I guess I've been recovering pretty much my whole adult life. But it really accelerated about 13 years ago when I had a breakdown around my mental health issues and found MHA and started my accelerated recovery process, working as a peer counselor, which really put me in the fast lane to like, now I have to help other people too. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I'm really big on, you know, reframing negative self-talk. These are things I've had to learn. So I think you can too. You out there can learn all this stuff too. Reframing negative self-talk, letting myself off the hook, just knowing that, mistakes are inevitable, but I don't have to punish myself for them. There's actually a Buddhist concept called the second arrow,
Hmm.
where, the first arrow is the thing that we did or that happened that we wish hadn't happened. That's the first arrow. It's like, and then the second arrow is all the guilt and condemnation and self-criticism, all that stuff. The second arrow, and so we can eliminate the second arrow. It is possible to eliminate the second arrow so we don't continue that cycle of self-abuse. Um, so yeah, so I recently had an experience with a friend where I was overly tired and I made a communication to her that really triggered some pain around recent events in her life. And I was like, oh my gosh. I seconded arrowed myself a bit, but I realized, okay, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing this and I'll get over it. But, I had to kind of go through the process of, feeling guilty about it and then going, forgiving myself.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And with clutter, I hear it daily. People get very upset with themselves. I hear, oh my God, look at all the money I wasted. There's something I hear, or look at all this food that's gone bad. Isn't that a shame? Um, how about, this used to fit me even, and now it doesn't. But, so there's all these things that people feel guilty and shameful for. They're not as fit as they used to be. They're not as healthy. They don't have as much money as they wanted because they bought all this stuff and now they're broke. I mean, every day the people I work with feel really guilty, really shameful for the decisions that they've made to have me come over. And you're right, like every single item kind of holds emotion because if you're not using it and you haven't seen it in a while, it's like, crap, I bought that and it's never come out of the bag,
Yeah.
and you could just beat yourself up all day. And, but it's not helpful. And how long are you going to do that for? I mean, is it atonement? Like, okay, if I beat myself up for 3 hours, then I feel like, it's like, no, we just got to get over it and say, you know what? F it. I wasted a lot of money on this stuff that I've never opened, never used. But like you said, that was me before, and the me right now says I'm ready to go through this stuff, and really trying to pull yourself out. And how do you suggest? Because I've been there. It's nice when you have friends say, like, all these motivational things at you, but like, how do you pull yourself out of this, Varian? Like, if you're really in a spiraling funk, self-care is lost, the house is a mess. Like, how do you ask for help? I mean, what was your system? How did you pull yourself out of the trenches?
Well, I've done a lot of personal growth work over the years, a lot of spiritual stuff, a lot of psychological stuff, really just learning new skills and learn a lot of the thoughts that I thought that were just normal for me. I realized, oh, when I started my recovery process, I thought, oh, I thought that was just normal. It was just a normal thought for me, but it was actually a symptom of hoarding disorder. So I started really identifying all those beliefs that were, sabotaging me and started to weed them out. But I've been doing it for decades before that too, not specifically around mental health issues, but around just, self-esteem, personal power, a lot of things. So now I can bring all that to the people I help. And
Yeah.
yeah, and so I think I'm a very creative wordsmith. So it became easy for me to, first of all, catch myself in the act. Oh, I'm beating myself up. So what is what is the inner critic telling me, the guilt voice? What's it saying, and how can I reframe that to be, more positive? Like, okay, oh, actually, it was a psychic. I was having a psychic reading many years ago, and at one point, she looked at me and said, "Do you call yourself stupid?" And I don't know. I had never thought about it. Do I breathe oxygen? It was just so natural to call myself stupid. But once she made me aware of it, mindful of it, then I started noticing how often I called myself stupid. And so that was where I guess that's where I started reframing. It's like, okay, if that's the word, if I catch myself calling myself stupid or an idiot or whatever, then I can, okay, wait, stop. Well, what's a kinder way to say that? Like, okay, maybe that wasn't the wisest choice I could have made, or maybe if I had stopped and thought about it, maybe I would have done it differently, things like that. But and okay, I learned, but I know I'm not stupid. That I
Right.
so um so yeah, just really being kinder to myself, and just I know that guilt is a lie. There's no reason that we need to feel guilty. There's some natural guilt that we feel when we, cross someone's boundaries or do something that we wish, that first arrow. But that doesn't last forever. It's not supposed to last your whole life. It's like, oh, sorry, I did this. I did this, like, messaging my friend something that, made her feel pain. I was like, oh, I did that. So I felt guilty. And then I go, okay, well, she's my friend. She loves me. She will forgive me eventually. I'm just not talking to her for a little while until I feel like I can go, until I feel clear on how to approach her. Um, but really just, I think that's where I started when I caught catching myself calling myself stupid was where I started. And then I built on that. I started to identify the negative self-talk because when that's all you're used to hearing from yourself or from
Right.
and from other people, you don't know there's an alternative. So it was kind people, kind, wise people kind of showing, excuse me, showing me the way. Okay, you don't have to do it that way. You can try it this way. And so I started experimenting and um, just practicing kindness. This whole thing about practice random acts of kindness. Well, do that to yourself too. Um, do that in ways that don't involve buying more stuff, bringing it into your house. And that's another learning process. Finding some healthy outlets for comforting ourselves, soothing ourselves that don't involve, you know, destroying our lives further.
Yeah, no, exactly. I find sometimes I have a dry erase marker and I'll write stuff on my mirror to remind myself. Um, I've got, it's hard to forgive yourself for things, especially if you really feel like you made huge mistakes in your life. And I've definitely asked for help. I've gone to therapy, I've had coaching. I learn a lot about myself in the field constantly. And I have the privilege of working with people. A lot of my clients are seniors. And so I kind of get all these life stories of people and successes and failures. And um, I see it as a privilege because I can see things that I don't want to do when I'm older and things that I might want to do. And it's really interesting to be able to see different ways that people live. Um, but the guilt and the shame is a real thing. And forgiving yourself. Um, how long do you think you should feel bad about something? What would be a realistic?
Well, as short a time as possible.
Yeah, yeah. Some
Uh,
people say like 90 seconds. I haven't gotten that good yet. I
yeah.
try and work on it.
Well, there's like a standard psychological, statistic for that, but it varies, on the magnitude of the thing that happened. But I think one thing you said that I want to kind of, it's a reframing opportunity. You said it's hard to forgive yourself, and that's something that I want to reframe in a
Yeah,
way that, okay, no, it's getting easier to forgive myself
it
rather
is.
than rather than saying
So
it's hard.
I like that. No, I like that.
Concrete belief. It's hard to forgive myself, so I can't do it.
Yeah.
I'm getting better at forgiving myself every day. Every time I practice it, I get better at forgiving myself. So that's a way of reframing it, because that's not an objective truth. Oh, it's hard to forgive yourself. No,
No, it really isn't.
that's just a belief. So we can change our belief.
Right.
So
And then it's like without that thought, where would I be? I'd be in a much better place.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, no, it's totally irrational. But that's how it feels when I get to the core of like certain items, of my life. And it's not, like I said, clutter, but I think everybody struggles with things that they regret. And just forgiving yourself, loving yourself is another big one, taking care of yourself. Um, where do you find help? I know the Mental Health Association has a lot of things going on in San Francisco. Do you think people should find help online with other people helping them? I know that you had sent over a wellness recovery action plan to me earlier, which I'd love to talk about on another um, Zoom, another podcast, because there's so many different ways that you can take care of yourself. And I think it's hard to figure out which one is right.
Yeah, well, I think, experiment. Recovery is a experience of experimentation and trying new things. Because, like, again, we're learning to walk. So try things that are, and if you need support of those little cute walker things with the wheels, metaphorically, of course, but maybe you'll need that. A lot of us are older. We need help walking now. So, um,
Yeah.
but I think really it's just knowing, I think definitely some people don't like groups, and a lot of because I facilitated several groups at MHA for so long, I see people coming in, anxious and afraid and kind of ashamed because they've never talked about their hoarding to anyone, and they're not sure what to expect, if it's going to be judgmental or led by a therapist who's having a clinical approach. They just don't know. So they come to the group and I get to welcome them and say, hey, I have this too. I'm very transparent about my process with it all, my struggles and my victories and all of that. So I share, and if I sometimes I'll pan around my space to show them that yes, I do still have clutter, but I've been doing this for 13 years or so, and it's so much better than it was. And I will say your mileage may vary. Maybe you'll move faster than I moved, or maybe I don't, it doesn't matter. Each person's process is individual. So I think comparison can be a deadly sword, kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
well, like we have action now that we're on Zoom, all our groups are on Zoom. We have action parties after our groups where people can take advantage of being at home with their stuff,
Yeah.
and we collectively like support each other in doing things. But a lot of people feel guilty if they're not. It's like we talked about last time. There's those stages of change. A lot of
Right.
people come to the groups feeling guilty that they're not in the action phase. Like, well, yeah, but there are three other phases before that that you have to go through before you get to the action stage. So be where you're at. I always stress that our groups are not decluttering groups. They are support groups for people with hoarding disorder, wherever they're at in their process. So, I just love seeing people come in with fear and leave with hope.
Isn't that nice? And
Yeah.
that's really refreshing that you will support people at any level. And it's hard professionally with the, pre-contemplation phase people that we talked about, but I honestly think that that's probably who's listening right now are people, or they might, they're just right on the fence of getting ready. I'm sure there's still a lot of guilt and shame. I find sometimes physically having people write down what they feel bad about, and then we put it into the black bag, with all the trash that goes to the dump. That's kind of, but they're still holding on to this stuff internally, but just helping people identify like, it's okay, or the amount of times people apologize to me in the day, and I go, okay, that's it. No more sorries. That's it. I have to be but no apologies and explain like I'm here to help. You don't have to apologize because, the kitchen's a mess or you can't make me a cup of coffee or it's like, no. and that's the guilt and shame, and it's like, oh God, if I were a better housekeeper, I could be a better hostess. And it's, so finding people like you and me and people understanding that it's a real process and a disorder, and being able to forgive themselves. Because I think a lot of people think that it's them, and a lot of people don't understand why it's happening, but they're taking all the guilt and blame and putting it on themselves,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, old friend said, you know, he was talking about depression specifically, but it's true of any kind of self-hating kind of thing that depression says, I'm the asshole at the center of the universe. It's all about me. I'm a horrible person, but it's all about me because that's as far as we can see. Oh, it's all up to me to be perfect and do the right thing and make everybody feel loved and blah whatever. So I think, but it's important to distinguish between guilt and shame because shame is a social emotion. It's imposed from outside. So it could be our parents, the religion that was imposed on us, society, you know, other kids at school shaming us for being different in some way. So shame comes from outside. So a lot of the stigma around hoarding is from outside. People don't live that way. How can you live that way? Well, I don't have a choice, but I'm gaining choice, and that's good enough. But then guilt comes from inside, and it's we feel guilty when we, you know, do something out of integrity. So, and like I said, like healthy guilt's like, oh, I did something and I feel bad about it. But that, it's not supposed that, like I said, it's supposed to last. I don't know what objectively they say, but a few minutes at the most. And then you go, okay, well, I can forgive myself for that. I made a mistake. Let's move on.
Yeah.
And but I think a lot of us get stuck in that guilt cycle because we all have an inner critic that goes, yeah, you shouldn't have done that. You made that person feel bad. Actually, I have OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and the OCD voice, I can identify it as this thing that it's in me, but it's not me. So I'll wake up in the morning feeling good, like, oh, great, nice day, blah, blah, blah. And suddenly this like ball of sludge will come. It always seems to come from the right side of my brain. And but it was like, oh, you were mean to that kid in third grade, and you should still feel horrible about it now at 61. You're a terrible, awful person. Because that's what OCD does. It just makes us feel bad about ourselves and afraid. So that, oh, and I've learned to identify that as an energetic and physical thing that I just feel like, ugh, I suddenly tense up. It's like, oh, that's just the OCD. So I just say good morning, OCD, and then I go about my day, go back to feeling good. So, but sometimes I'll exclaim, ugh, and people go, what's happening? So that was just OCD throwing up in my face. So, but I don't give it any power anymore. Took my power back from OCD, and now I'm increasingly taking my power back from hoarding disorder.
Yeah. What kinds of other things do you feel people struggle with when it comes to clutter and feeling guilty, um, about their clutter? What other things do you hear every day?
Well, I think, really feeling, and I think this in my own self too, that a lot of things that we hold on to are because of guilt. Like, oh, I never followed through on that great project idea I had. I bought this stuff and now I bought these clothes and now this has happened to me recently. I bought clothes and before I could wear them, I gained more weight and now those clothes don't fit anymore. So, feeling guilty about wasting money on those clothes. Um, you like we talked about earlier before the audience joined us about, buying food and letting it go to waste. But so there's a lot of it is waste. Perfectionism comes into with this disorder and OCD as well. Um, and ecological perfectionism is something that a lot of us fall into too, because we're Californians or wherever we live. Might think, oh, saving the environment depends on me. Well, no, it doesn't, because you're a very small fish in a huge ocean of human waste. So. my little pile of trash that I generate in this lifetime is not going to sway the environment one way or the other. So, but it is causing a lot of stress in my life and a lot of guilt. I knew a woman who uh, the city she lived in doesn't have, well, they have a recycling program, but she has to drive, you have to drive several miles to get there. It's not like San Francisco where we just toss it in a bin and it's taken away. So a lot of places aren't as advanced ecologically as we are. But so she was saving all these, plastic soda bottles and aluminum cans in big black trash bags. And, but they were piling up in her kitchen and they would break and spill all over, and her car was full of them too, and she never got around to driving to the uh, the recycling center. And but she felt she couldn't throw them away because she felt so responsible for the environment. And so I finally kind of coaxed her into a different perspective, seeing a different perspective on it. It's like, okay, the environment's going to be what it is, fine. It's not up to you single-handedly to save the environment by having your house full of this crap. So, but it is destroying your life. So put yourself first and know that you are worth having a nicer home. And so she was able to just throw all that stuff away because
Yeah.
she called her bluff. Okay, I'm never going to get around to driving to the recycling bin. I forgive or the recycling place, and I can forgive myself because I have this disorder that most people don't have. So I have to make special allowances for myself and my behavior that other people don't have to. So realizing that, I'm in control here, not, you know, the
Yeah.
the mass consciousness or anything else. So when I started my recovery process, I said, okay, I put my mental health above any other concerns. So, I think a healthy selfishness needs to be learned in order to really make this work.
Yeah, it's really hard with the ecological perfection. That's a real thing that I run into a lot. And I've had people say, like, it's not going unless you all rinse, recycle it, and pay, hundreds of dollars an hour for us to do things like empty out a macaroni and cheese. So, like, open it up, dump out the pasta into the green bin, flatten the box perfectly to put
Mm,
it into the recycling bin, and then, like, the packet then is opened and put into and it's like, but I've been there, and it's debilitating for people, and it's really hard if you can afford to have, four or five of us clear out your kitchen in such a way. But it was also just really sad. I mean, a lot of people can't. Um, and getting people to realize, because I go to the dump all the time here, at least in California, they're really good at sorting. If something gets slipped in that is recyclable, they'll usually pull it out. As far as the garbage dump itself, not like a transfer station or a recycling. Um, but then also just being able to let it go once your home is kind of turned into a recycling center because you're so busy, or like cans of cat food stacked up with flies around. And it's like, well, once I rinse them perfectly, like scrubbing each one for a minute, um,
mm.
they can't go.
Yeah. Well, the San Francisco recology, the recycling program says on their website, don't wash your containers because we're going to do it again. So you're just wasting water by washing them before you put them in the bin. So,
Yeah.
if you want to be, eco-perfectionistic, don't waste water. Throw them in the bin because people get paid to do all that stuff. And
Yeah.
if everybody did it perfectly, then those people would be out of jobs. Do you want them to be out of jobs? They're really thinking it all through. A lot of times we just have these emotional reactions, but we don't actually think, "Oh, okay, let's think this through. Let's go to the website." I've actually gone to the website with people and shown them where it says, do not rinse the cans and bottles.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
so having people do the research so they don't feel so guilty.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just great. It's like, oh, cool. Because it then just makes it easier to sort. I think the whole rinsing part really throws people off.
Yeah.
Um, And then I've told people today is the day, forgive yourself, we're throwing it all out.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it just makes your day, doesn't it? It
Yeah.
makes the life easier. I mean, do you really want to sit and rinse out peanut butter jars? Like that is the worst. Mayonnaise, like there are some that take forever.
And that's why we avoid doing it, because it's going to take so long with that kind of perfectionistic, overthinking of it and adding all these unnecessary steps. We had a great time when you came over and we went into my cupboards and just threw out years of old food without, in the cans or bottle
Yeah,
jars, or just throw it away, throw it away. I need to get rid of it more
yeah,
than I need to save the environment, which I'm not going to do anyway, just by, recycling. So
exactly, exactly.
gaining perspective, a healthy
And
perspective.
space, all that space we got like that, you know? I
Yeah,
mean, it would have taken like a month to wash everything perfectly
yeah.
and
Yeah, because there was a lot of stuff. So yeah, it was so great. So yeah, I think, Rachel's great to work with because she will not, well, she will, I don't say you won't let people get stuck in perfection, but you will, like I said, persuade, help you see a different perspective on things.
yeah, and it's just good to do research, especially on wherever landfill transfer stations are in, because I know people listen from all over the world, and just understanding what the recycling rules are, because that is a big one. Textile recycling is another big one. People hate to throw out clothing or textiles that are ripped or dirty. So maybe researching a place that does it, or getting better at forgiving yourself for just throwing it out and being happy with a clear closet.
Yeah, we had a discussion in one of our groups about the how to dispose of medications. And
Good.
someone was arguing for the ideal, perfect way. It's like, oh, take them to a drugstore and blah blah, so they don't end up in landfills. And I'm like, okay, that's the ideal way to do it. But if you're unable to do, if that's keeping you hold from doing it and you're holding on to all this stuff, just forgive yourself and throw it away. Yeah, I said,
Yeah.
you have my permission, just throw it away. Not that that means anything, but really just seeing a different perspective. Like you can get trapped. It's a trap.
People are probably gasping right now, like, but, but,
Yeah,
it's like, you're not going to take it to CVS and take it to my favorite is the person that wants to put them all into a clear Ziploc bag. And some of my organizers do this too. I'm like, what are we doing? And not that I even throw it in the trash because I have access to, because my son's always at Kaiser. I take them there,
yeah,
but just the over processing of things to get them out the door,
yeah,
so that you don't feel guilty, usually about the environment, it can really stop you, So it's like you don't have to put them all into a clear plastic bag. You
yeah.
know, you don't have to scrape out your name. That's another thing,
Yeah,
and throw them out. But if you have to be, if you can't, if you have to do it, then just go to CVS or Kaiser and put it in one of those mail bins if you're really going to do it.
yeah. But call
And
your
that's the thing. I tell people, do you really think you're going to do it? And they say no. And I'm like, give them to me. I will do it for you because we do it on usually a bulk scale too. But it'll hold you back. And then so if you add up all the things, medication that needs to be properly recycled, recycling that has to be properly recycled, like your old textbooks that maybe a new person, there's all these categories of things that people hang on to because of guilt.
yeah,
And once those are all gone, it's amazing how much room they have to be creative, um,
yeah.
or enjoy.
Yeah, and it's not just the stuff going out, it's the guilt, it's the weight. I felt after we emptied my cupboards, I just felt I could feel all this psychic space
Oh yeah.
up because it had been in the back of my mind and in the front of my mind for so long to go through my cupboards, and I couldn't do it. So,
And every time you walked by your cupboard, it was a reminder of a
yeah,
failure, even subconsciously. Yeah, you didn't do it. It wasn't, yeah.
yeah,
And so that's that's a hard thing to put up with. I do it constantly. I'm constantly purging because I don't like feeling like that more than once. If something doesn't look right, I don't want to look at it again and say, "Oh, remember that's the dress." And sometimes I'm harsh, obviously, because I'm an organizer, but the feeling of seeing it again and again is just too much for me because, it's like a constant reminder that I've put on weight or I'm not as young as I used to be, or or the style is, whatever it is, it's just a constant reminder. And then, you turn the next item and it's like, oh, there's that sweater that so and so got me, but I didn't like it.
Yeah.
But my sister gave it to me, so she now hardly ever gives me a
Yeah.
sweater. I have one of those, and it's like, no. And then before you know it, everything in your closet is like an excuse.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so really,
Sorry.
yeah, no, letting go of the item lets go of that whole feeling, because I'll never have to see that stupid black dress. I got rid of one the other day. It's like, this one didn't fit you. Get it out of here.
Yeah.
It feels like shit. It does. I feel bad. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, why don't I fit in this anymore? Like, why hang it back up? Uh,
Yeah.
I know I'm not ever going to fit into it again. We have to
Yeah.
be
Yeah. Yeah.
realistic.
Yeah, it's well, I tend to think people with hoarding sort of tend, well, a lot of people, but specifically around our clutter, we tend to live in the past with memories and sentimentalities and projects that we still think we're going to do someday, or we live in the future with potential and fantasies of the person will be someday. But the more we can learn to bring ourselves into the present and go, "Ooh, I have too much stuff." And that's, it's the present is unpleasant, but the only time and place it's going to change is here and now. So the more we can just kind of be with here and be with the discomfort of it and have support. If you can't, we can't do this on our own. That's what we have to realize. There's the voice in me that's like, "Oh, I should be able to do this on my own." And that's another word to notice if you should yourself a lot. Should is a shaming word. Excuse me, should is a shaming word because it takes away it denies free will. You should do it this way. No, I can do it any way I want. I can choose. I could do it that way. It's my choice. I don't have, nobody can tell me how I should be or should do or whatever. So it's a toxic word. And I
Yeah,
still fall into it again, but I catch myself. Oh, so words like stupid, idiot, should, um, different words like
right.
that. Those are kind of like, oh, when you notice, become mindful of those words, and when you notice you're saying them to yourself or to someone else, go, oh, wait a minute, that's a red flag right there. What do I do now? I think about this, and kind of break it down. Don't overthink it, but think about it.
Yeah,
So, but I think there's an ideal way of doing things like, oh, I've learned with my own medications that I can be really sloppy with them and forget them for days and they still work. I can't say that's going to work for everybody, but for me, I've learned, okay, there's the ideal way where you take it on time and, you yeah, I used to take HIV meds three times a day with no fat in my stomach. And that was hellish. So I thought, okay, if these are going to work, they're going to have to work how I take them, not how I'm supposed to take them. So, and they did miraculously. So, but I think so there's the ideal way and then there's the realistic way. Okay, what's actually going to work? Yeah, if I can do it the ideal way, great. But if I can't, I got to do it the way that I can do it. But, do it however I can do it you know
exactly.
so I think I was at a spiritual retreat years ago, and I was in such a high expanded state that I was just like seeing beauty everywhere. And when I came back to the city, that is, and I had a car at that time, so I was driving out to the ocean, and out in the avenues I saw this dilapidated house. It was like, shutters leaning off and a picket fence with peeling paint and slats missing and the yard overgrown with weeds. And it looked, it was the perfect house it looked like some set designer in a horror movie had designed this dilapidated house. And it goes, oh my God, that's perfect. It's not flawless, but it's perfect. It's the perfect dilapidated house. So I realized, okay, perfect doesn't mean flawless. So I'm perfect right now, even with all of my flaws, because this is where I'm supposed to be at this point in my growth. If I didn't have any flaws, I'd be perfect and I wouldn't need to, be here anymore. So, so it's life is a process of trial and error. So, don't feel I mean, it depending on the error, don't feel bad about the error, but like, feel healthy guilt, which is like 90 seconds to 3 minutes. That's what I'm going to say. And then you get over it. You don't get stuck in guilt for the rest of your life and
Yeah.
punish yourself. So, But
Yeah,
yeah, that's when I realized that perfect doesn't mean flawless.
I like that. I like that. And guilt is clutter, you know? I mean, all of this is just emotional clutter that people and we're all dealing with inside. And then once you get better at forgiving yourself, you're allowing yourself to be open to more happy and positive things, would be my guess. And you touched a little bit briefly, and I don't want to offend anyone, but it is a real thing with the way people were brought up and religions and certain communities, and their beliefs about guilt and shame and just the things that they've embedded in people. And I work with a lot of people that grew up with like a lot of either like Catholic or Jewish guilt, and they share this with me, and they're just like, oh my God, like if my mother knew what my house looked like now, or how much I've wasted, or, and it's, you know, if people that are listening feel like that, you know, try and identify, is this like my guilt or is this someone else's guilt that has been imposed on me? Am I worried about someone else? Because that's usually where people uh, admit, like, oh, yeah, I suffer from Catholic guilt. You know, I grew up in this or that. And it's like, well, no, that's a real thing, you know, and is it your guilt or you just trained to say that, you know, this is the only way that you could feel. And so carrying other people's guilt and shame, um, I think it's a real thing. I know there's communities out there that kind of scoff at just professional organizers in general because the woman in the home is supposed to be doing everything I do. And so it's like, well, why? What are you even here for?
Yeah.
Like, you're a house cleaner? Like, what do you do? Like, so they don't even think that like maybe a woman even or a person or anybody needs outside help in the family. And so then there's this like guilt, cultural guilt. Like, oh my gosh, like I'm a Latina woman, I should be managing my house, but like maybe they have ADHD and five kids and a full-time job. Like maybe it's not realistic for them to be managing their house. So people carry a lot of shame and guilt, and it's you know, a lot of it's from childhood or just thoughts and beliefs, like you were saying, and it's hard.
Yeah, I think what's, first step is identifying a belief and then can figure out where whose belief is this? Where did it come from? And does it serve me or is it holding me back? And if it's holding me back, I have a naturally shameless personality. So if I find those weeds of shame lurking somewhere, I pull them immediately. Because I want to be free of all that. I know that it feels better. And if you're not, if this seems like if you never felt good about yourself, know that it is possible. At least I define hope as being open to the possibility that things can change for the better. So if you're not used to feeling good about yourself, know that it is possible to feel better about yourself. And you can, that is a growth process. And maybe you're not ready to declutter right now. Maybe your process is about learning to forgive yourself or forgive others. And or maybe it's about just learning about what beliefs like are beneficial. Like I said, a lot of my beliefs, and this is in the Buried in Treasures book too, a lot of distorted beliefs, unhelpful beliefs about, you know, usefulness, monetary value, perfectionism, things like that. So they're just not helpful. And identifying those and going, oh, okay, what can I do instead of this? So, and definitely, oh, you asked about groups earlier. It's like definitely if we can't do this on our own. So see what other people are doing. And, that's what I love about MHA's groups because it's a peer-based model. So I'm not a therapist sitting above up here going, well, this is your disorder and this is how you do it. I'm in the same boat as you guys. And, we're all recovering together and people, it's not my group, it's our group that people have experiences and knowledge and wisdom that I don't have. I want to learn from them as well. So it's great to see the synergy of the group. It's different because it's a drop-in group. It's different every time, but not completely different. They're regulars who come, but it's great to see just what we create together. So something one person says, reminds something of someone else of something that from their experience, and it's just kind of builds on itself. So I just want to say all of our groups, all of MHA's support groups are open to all California residents.
Great. And I'll definitely have a link in the comments. And then I'm going to put a link to the Buried in Treasures book because that's one I haven't talked about in a long time. And it's very helpful. And do you also have Buried in Treasure workshops that you offer?
We have a class once a year. Unfortunately, that's all we can really, that's all that's in our budget to have. But there are buried in treasures classes in other places. A lot of them, they're happening on Zoom, or in person in different places. So you just search buried in treasures class, and they're not all equal because some are ideally buried in treasures is supposed to be peer led. So it's supposed to be hoarders facilitating the group for other hoarders. But at MHA, we have a great marriage and family therapist who co-facilitates with one of us peers, and so they get the benefit of the kind of clinical perspective and the peer perspective. So it can be done that way, but there should be at least one peer facilitating it. But some therapists have kind of adapted it, and it's not really buried in treasures. They just take what they make it their version, which is, kind of against the spirit of buried in treasures, the peer, the peers helping peers kind of model. But I'm a fan of whatever works. If you
Oh,
find
yeah. Yeah. And even I found just the workbook works if you don't want to try a group just yet, getting that Buried in Treasures book because it asks a lot of questions that you could ask yourself.
yeah, and you can get it free online. There's
Oh,
PDFs of the Buried in Treasure book online. You can get it free from the San Francisco Library, probably other libraries. You can get it as an ebook from the San Francisco Library. There are lots of ways to access that material. It's 16 classes. Well, if it's done as a class, then it's 16 classes over 20 weeks because you
okay.
take weeks to do home visits and things. But so it's a progressive curriculum as you go through the book. It kind of like what is hoarding disorder? What are the kind of unhelpful beliefs and emotions that got us stuck in this trap, and then learning skills and techniques for freeing ourselves from traps and changing the beliefs into the unhelpful beliefs into helpful beliefs.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely changing the narrative and changing the story, even like you had me do earlier with wording, being aware of what words we use with ourselves, not being able to uh, forgive myself, that statement that I
Mhm.
made earlier, that kind of thing. Just really tuning into yourself and saying, am I beating myself up? Why? And it's like, how long is it? What is the equivalence of making myself feel like this? Like, what benefit do I get? Um, because it never seems to end unless you cut it off completely. And even if you don't get rid of that item that reminds you of that bad thing every time, I definitely recommend keeping it out of sight so that you're not, reminded by it all the time. Um,
And it can be a good place to have a place for objects you're considering possibly letting go of. Okay, put those in the kind of airlock. Maybe they're going to get jettisoned out into space, but for right now, it's okay if they're sitting in the staging area, the airlock. I just had that image of an airlock. So,
I like that. And I like that you didn't say get rid of it because that's what people are afraid of. And I say that's okay. Let's make a bin of clothing that doesn't fit. Let's make a bin of memorabilia. Like, oh, well, that's a concert t-shirt, and it's like, well, let's weed out all this from your closet, not even get rid of it, but, get it out so that you just only see things that are guilt-free and you're like, okay, this feels good. You're not keeping it for some other reason. You're keeping it because you feel good in it. So even if you don't get rid of the stuff, try and um make the stuff that makes you feel bad go away out
yeah.
of your peripherals because it's a constant reminder. It's a freaking constant reminder. And I mean, even stuff like I'm I'm, divorce. People will have stuff of their ex-partners or other people's stuff and it's a traumatic thing, if you've got stuff like that and you see it every single day, like I'm suggesting to just tuck it away if you don't get rid of it. Because yeah, there's these attachments with pretty much everything. And if you can kind of clear all that out of the way, like, and just be left with what makes you happy, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and that's a good experience to realize, oh, this there is stuff in my clutter that makes me happy. So what if I was just had stuff that made me happy? What would that be like? That's an
Yeah,
experiment to try. But there's
yeah,
yeah. So what, you know, focus on happiness.
exactly. And especially with hoarding, maybe just not even focus on the immediate getting rid of.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what really people obviously struggle with. And so, like, at least queuing it, like you said, maybe it'll go into oblivion. Who knows? Like, you
Mhm.
don't want it, but maybe you're just not ready to get rid of it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Well,
should even do that in my closet. I mean, we all have aspirational clothing, but even weeding it out. I hardly ever go out, but like my girlfriend's invited me out for St. Patrick's Day, and here it is. It's like too fat, like, and I'm looking, too clingy, too whatever. And then of course I go to the same dress that I always wear. And I'm like, oh my God, this is ridiculous, like Rachel. So I think I'm gonna just move those aspirational dresses out of the way because they do make me feel like crap when I actually do need to get dressed up. I would really love to just see dresses that make me feel pretty.
yeah.
You
Yeah. Me
know?
too.
Yeah, right? I mean, that's not too bad.
So, well, this closet behind me, I couldn't get to it for many years. And even before I could get into it, I thought, okay, I haven't been in that closet in years, and I know nothing in there is going to fit me. So I could just have, I have another helper. I could just have him take all that stuff out and donate it without even looking at it. I could do that, but then I thought, maybe I should look at it. So I did, and I found one shirt that, like, oh, that has special memories. I want to hold on to that. But then, so kind of got, oh, okay. I never went back to like sort the stuff. So it's all just hanging there. And I know that I could pull out that one shirt that I am going to keep and then, go through the rest at somebody. But I guess it's not a priority because it's out of sight, out of mind. I'm working on other
Yeah,
things. But anyway, I know that I'll get to that closet at some point, and
right, exactly.
most everything in it is going to go to someone.
Yeah, but why feel guilty about it right now? Like it's gonna be there, it'll go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And that can be a really difficult thing is for people with hoarding disorder in establishing a priority. What's the most important? Because we get overwhelmed by looking at all of it. So how can we break it down? Like I don't like the word motivation. I like the word inspiration. Like what's going to inspire me to get moving? And, what's going to inspire me to maybe I want to finally vacuum the dirt that's spilled from that plant that fell over in that corner. Maybe that will make me feel better. And that's something I feel like I can do rather than making decisions about my stuff. Just I prefer to call I try to avoid the word decluttering, even though I fall into it, but I like the term home improvements. How can I improve? What's going to inspire me to improve my home today? So
I
maybe
like that.
it could be I noticed
Yeah, decluttering is so hard and boring and like, ugh,
yeah.
who
Yeah.
no one wants to declutter.
Yeah, it sounds
At
like a
home,
chore to be avoided. But I've been noticing how many cobwebs I have in my kitchen. And I'm like, I have this fuzzy thing with a long handle, and I could just go around and knock the cobwebs down. Uh, and that would make me feel better about my kitchen. Uh,
exactly.
so it's something like that. I'm not, I made the decision that I'm not attached to those cobwebs, so I can, it wouldn't cause me pain to get rid of them. It would actually feel good. So.
Exactly. And just progress, is always something I tell people. It doesn't matter if it's perfect, just do something a little bit every day, like the cobwebs, and jumping into making a lot of decisions. I found with people that really struggle with hoarding disorder, it's too overwhelming. It's like, let's just do a little bit at a time. This took maybe decades to get here. We don't need to get it all done or in a certain order. To me, the big priority is always safety To me, that's really it. You know, I don't care where we start as long as you're safe and I don't have to worry about you falling or hurting yourself. Um, you know, so it could be, and I tell people like, oh, we don't even have to touch that closet. That closet doesn't even exist,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
they're like, oh, thank God, I didn't want to go through that. It's just
Yeah.
not ready to go through that. And that is okay. It's okay.
Well, one thing we like to do at MHA is, stress. It's a way of helping it break it down. Safety first. Let's focus on safety issues. Do you have stuff stacked on your stove? Let's try maybe clear that off. Do you have, I have light switches that didn't work. I had overloaded sockets, things like that. And I know I'm not sure, I can't remember right now where it is, but in San Francisco, there's a list you can access of the fire and safety codes for San Francisco
Mhm.
building or renters, not for property owners, but for renters. And it's, doors have to open 90 degrees or something so that, rescue people can get a gurney in. So that can be a way of breaking down what just focus on these things on this list and make yourself safer. If is all your fire exit or any of your fire exits blocked? Maybe let's focus on clearing your back door so you can get out in case of a fire or an earthquake or um, anything that you might need to make a quick exit, but you can't get out the front. I'm on the third floor. I don't want to be jumping out a window. um,
Gosh.
so yeah, so safety first is a good way to narrow it down, but we can also tend to get stuck on one thing, like, oh, I have to work on my magazines. Well, if you're stuck on the magazines, reroute yourself and think, okay, what if I'm stuck on those, what can I work on? What do I not feel? What doesn't make me feel so stuck? What else? Because it doesn't have to be the ultimate thing. We don't have to have the perfect thing to work on every time. Just work on something. Um, we always suggest people start with the low-hanging fruit, all the easiest stuff that would be easy to sort you don't have to do all of your Walgreens receipts in a day. You can start throwing, a couple out at a time. Um,
Yeah.
Things like that. So yeah, we get stuck, don't let the perfect, what is it? Don't let the perfect be Don't focus on, I'll rephrase it. Don't focus on the perfect at the expense of the good, or the good enough. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are also different ways that people can process things that especially paperwork. So for instance, like with the Walgreens receipts, you know, like, hey, let's just instead of going even by Walgreens, let's just go by 2025 to begin with, you know. Um like just starting with a broad category. Like instead of saying like I have to file every PG&E bill right now, you know, like let's just focus on what's happening right now. Because your paperwork will be there and there's not, I think people really feel like they have to do their paperwork right away. And that to me is usually the last thing that you should do. Definitely keeping up with your basic, you know, bills and stuff like that. But paperwork from 10 years ago um, isn't usually a priority either. Like we all know it's there.
Yeah.
High paperwork from 10 years ago. Like it doesn't all have to go at once.
Yeah.
You don't have to see it and say, oh God, there's the paperwork and feel bad about it every time. Like,
Yeah.
hey,
Unless
morning
you need
paperwork from
something.
10 years ago, right? How are you today?
Yeah. Unless you need something, like I've been in my place 29 years and can I find my original lease? It's somewhere but so I have a digital copy of my lease now that I got from my landlord so that uh if I ever find the the original paper lease, I'll put it in a special place. But
Right.
um but now I get a digital copy. So
You forgave yourself for knowing it's somewhere there and you just can't find it. Mhm.
yeah. So
Good for you.
yeah, and yeah, I have an important paper drawer. It's not it's just a drawer that I throw important papers in, and they're not organized within that drawer, but I know if I need an important paper, it's in that drawer. So I go to that drawer. And it's a well, actually, Drawers are good. Most drawers don't move around, but some drawers do. This drawer is in a little chest of drawers that has been moved a couple times. So I kind of lost that system for a while, but now I'm back to it, putting all my important papers in that drawer.
Yeah.
And I don't, I'm not stressing about them being in chronological order or anything or like certain categories. They're just in there.
And that's a
Good enough.
forgiveness too. You forgave yourself for not being perfect.
Yeah, it's
It
good
was
enough.
good enough. Good
Yeah,
enough.
yeah, I know
Yeah.
where we are. So that's all that
Yeah.
is really important.
I saw this meme that was funny. It was like two stressed out moms, and one was like folding her husband's underwear. It was like how to put away your husband's underwear into these like perfect little Marie Kondo. And then the other one had her hair like disheveled and she just like plopped it into the drawer like. But
Yeah.
that's but it same thing. I mean, the underwear all went into the drawer, and I posted like either way works. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be this perfect system. Like just put it in the drawer.
Yeah. And honestly, that's how lots of men do it. So your husband isn't going to get upset if his underwear isn't folded perfectly, but unless he has OCD, maybe. But but most,
No,
yeah,
but
like
it's society and it's organizing. It's like the home edit. And I love organizing, but it's these unrealistic perfectionistic ways of organizing that I think hold people back, and it always gets me into trouble for
yeah,
saying
yeah,
this. But like only handle it once and then people feel guilty for handling it. Like there's these things that are just so arbitrary that are put out there that I think hold people back. So knowing that, not everybody lives in a perfect folded home. I don't.
yeah,
I can find everything I need. However, nothing is absolutely perfect. I live here and I have a life. If
yeah.
I folded everything perfectly, I'd have like no time to watch shows I like or walk my dogs or cook or, you
All
know,
the all the enjoyment thing. And
all the things I
some
really like
people do get enjoyment from that kind of organizing, and that's fine, but as long as it's not compulsive. But
doing.
um the
Yeah,
even Marie Kondo had she said after her third child was born, she gave up on tidying
I
because
loved that. I love that. And I share that with people because some people don't know that. I'm like, oh, she fell off the wagon, right?
did she forgive herself? That's the question.
Right. And that's the whole thing. It's like, there's no real perfect way to do anything. Just being happy and feeling safe and being able to find things. People get really mad at themselves like, damn it, I have to buy another such and such because I can't find this freaking whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so that's just another form of guilt again.
Well, if you do have to do that, so okay, well, I had to do that again, but this new one, I'm going to find a home for it.
Right. And be
I'm
intentional
gonna
with it.
do it differently this time. Like I have a thing where if I take a tool or a roll of duct tape or something out of my toolbox and I use it, my habit has in the past has been to just put it on my desk and okay, I'll get it later, and then it gets shuffled into the clutter, or falls on the floor and ends up under the bed. That's the way it was in the past. And I think that's a way of so now like okay, it's a practicing habit and I'm not 100% good at it, but I'll oh, I saw a great thing. Don't put it down, put it away.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Was it a woman telling herself that?
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
every
yeah.
time she went to go see them, don't put it down, put it away.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So just kind of
Yes.
retraining our brains.
You
Um,
have to. And that's definitely one of my secrets. Seriously. And I know it's silly and kind of obvious, but like just having a certain place for things, and that resolves a lot of guilt. You feel bad because you're late somewhere, you can't find your keys. So really, I think a lot of there's ways that you can even avoid having to forgive yourself and have other people forgive you for being late, because that's another thing. If you can't find something, or a lot of the times they're like, there's so and so's birthday present, I was going to give them that. And then there's
yeah,
that, you know. So really,
the second arrow, yeah.
that
Well,
second arrow.
yeah, my ex who I had a partner for many years and then we separated and became and remained best friends. And he died in 2021 suddenly of a heart attack. And yeah, that was very traumatic. And then one night after at an action party after one of our support groups, we were doing decluttering, and I went over this dresser I have over here that has piles of stuff on it, and I was going through there, and I found this little gift I had bought for him. It was a little fuzzy coin purse with the poop emoji on it. And I found it, and I just broke down bawling because I'd bought this gift for him and never given it to him, and now I never can. So I just broke down, and I couldn't continue with the action party. But I was able to forgive myself for not doing that. And now I use the coin purse and think about him when I use it. So so I guess it was a gift for myself, but with him in mind. So that's what it turned out to
Yeah,
be.
changing the narrative, changing the story, making yourself, not feel so bad about things is really what we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think a lot I think it's a question of, okay, which feels better, telling myself that I'm a failure and I'm stupid and blah blah blah, or telling myself that, hey, I'm learning, I'm growing, making mistakes is normal for a human being. We can't know everything all at once, which feels better? And I want to feel better. Make the choice that I want to feel better. So, start making choices that allow you to feel better about yourself and just better emotionally. So, and I think the RAP Wellness Recovery Action Plan is a good topic for that at some point.
Yeah, for one of our next episodes. So, that sounds interesting. I'm definitely writing that down. Well, it was great having you back on. Um,
Yay.
Definitely working on forgiveness personally, and hope everybody out there can work on forgiving themselves for whatever it is, because we all deserve to be happy.
Yeah. I'd say play with forgiveness. Don't work on it. Who wants to work?
Yes.
Play with forgiveness. Hey, what would it be like if I forgave myself? How would I feel? Yeah.
Exactly. What kind of person would I be if I didn't feel guilty about that crap all the time?
Yeah. Yeah. Know that the second arrow doesn't have to happen. It will, but you don't have to live there anymore.
All right.
Yeah.
Make a note of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's constantly growing, right?
Yeah.
Always learning.
Yeah. And if you're not learning, then you might as well be dead.
That's
So,
right. That's
but
right.
yeah.
Well, we'll
So,
see you next time, Varian. Thank you.
yeah, great to see you, Rachel, and hello, everyone out there, and goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Hoardganize podcast. Please make sure you're subscribed and join our Hoardganize podcast Facebook page and get additional tips and challenges.